Good morning and welcome to Georgian Bay. In support of Halton Women's Place, we've created a brand called Wallet to Wealth that helps women to educate them, to mentor them, and to lead them to living empowered lives. So welcome today. In 2019, we launched our annual From Wallet to Wealth event, and we were able to raise $15,000 for Halton Women's Place. Mark your calendars, because on November the 12th, we will be doing the same event, and this time it will be virtual. And it'll actually be better because we will be able to reach many, many, many more ladies. So we will have a great lineup of female entrepreneur speakers who will show us how they found advantage in their adversity. So check the website and you'll see who the speakers are, and we'll start rolling that out over social media probably next week. We've had them lined up for a while. And okay, so today I'm really, really excited for our speaker. Just working on my social media here. There we go. So, okay, so here's a woman who does it all. Many of you already know her. She's very active on social media. She's very, very giving. She's a mom with small children. She's a partner in her own accounting firm, and she's an advocate for women in helping them to build wealth and save their taxes. Please help me welcome Shalini. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And thank you for being so visible to help women. So we'll get into that shortly. And it's not only women that you help, it's businesses, women and men, but you really push yourself out there to try to help educate women. So we'll get into all of that. But first of all, I wanted to talk to you about some cultural messages, some, we call it generational trauma, societal messages. Tell me about how has that affected you? What have you learned in your life?
Well, I was one of the fortunate ones. My family, for the most part, is pretty modern in the sense of I was never really treated differently just because I'm a female versus a male. I was also an only child, so I can't say that my parents would have treated a brother differently than they treated me, but within my immediate family, there wasn't really that much of a disconnect. But within my culture, I am Indian. There are a lot of messages that get put out there of what the role of a woman is versus the role of the man. People want sons because the sons are going to take care of you versus having a daughter. The daughter's a burden. So these are kind of the cultural norms and messaging that comes in our, it's in our movies, it's in our TV shows. And I've also recently found out it's not necessarily just the Indian culture. A lot of European cultures kind of share those same sentiments. It's the son's role to take care of the elderly parents and the everything. And it's just the woman's role to take care of the house and the kids. And so while my parents never pushed that on me directly, sometimes my dad will say things of like, don't worry about the business, go take care of your kids. And it's like, no, I want to do both. And so it's just, you kind of grow up with these things, and it's being conscious of it that is the hardest thing to break through of that.
Yeah, that, so this is extremely important. There's nothing wrong with staying home and being a stay-at-home mom. It's ideal, really, if we have it. But the thing is that many of us, we have more to give. We're very nurturing. We have more to give. We have a terrific amount of energy that we are able to raise children and to work. Whether we're running our business from our home or whether we're running it from our own office. And it's important for children to see that, because they get the balance between the mom and the dad. But the big thing is that many of us women, we end up on our own. Like the traditional being married for 45 years, it's just not happening anymore. And it's not always about divorce. I know the divorce rate is very high. It's not so in your culture, but we lose our partners, and we lose them to early death. And you and I both know this because this is what we do for a living. So we see it all the time. So the adversity that you heard, the societal messages that you've heard, that's brought you to, you know, really a terrific advantage in what you're doing in your business, because you've incorporated that probably without probably more in your subconscious than your actual conscious. So tell us how that works for you.
Well, unfortunately, in my personal life, we've had some deaths in the family. Like you said, you know, we don't always foresee deaths. And so I've seen some of the women in my family have to be forced into this realm where they're now all of a sudden a single parent. Plus, they now have to figure out finances, which they never really had a role in. And I love what you said earlier, that it's not that being a stay-at-home mom is a bad thing. I think where the disconnect happens is that even if you're going to be the stay-at-home parent, that doesn't mean that you don't get involved in the decision-making process, or at least part of that routine. You might not be the one actually clicking pay bill, but you should understand what the goals are and how you're working towards it. And for a lot of women, they don't do that. They have this, well, this is my role, this is your role, and they don't necessarily have combined conversations. I saw that in my own family. As educated as my mother is, as involved as in the business as she was the one who's taking care of the kids, the parents. You know, my grandfather was sick, my grandmother was sick. She was taking care of the family. My dad took care of everything else. And it's like, why can't you have a combined conversation about all of these things? Because heaven forbid something happen, and you never think it's going to happen until it does. What then?
Yeah.
On top of all the stress of dealing with the death or the separation, or, you know, whatever those circumstances are, now you are learning a brand new skill.
Yeah. Excellent. And you know what? It's about being in control, having some control of your life. I mean, when you're working your own finances, you're building your own net worth, you're investing money, you're contributing to, you know, household bills. That's a significant amount of healthy control. So tell us about the awesome business that you've built.
So truth be told, I didn't build it. My father had his own accounting practice for a number of years. So my father has one of those career trajectories that you're just like, how did you go from here to here? So he went to school for engineering, ended up in like IT consulting for a while, went and got his MBA, loved finance, then went and got his CGA, which is an accounting designation, and then realized I'm not giving the full piece of the picture. Then him and my parents went and got their financial planning certifications and designations. So I grew up with entrepreneurial parents. The reason I went into accounting, truth be told, was a process of elimination. I was actually doing the medical route up until I had to apply for university. And I realized I didn't want to be in school till I was in my 30s. And I took, my electives were business courses. And I realized I just really loved the business courses more than I liked the science courses. So I did the accounting thing. I hated it. I hated my corporate experience. I was not a fan of audit, the long hours. I did not find it very rewarding. And then when I had my first son, I was at the time working at the Ministry of Education at Queen's Park. That was about a 2-hour commute each way. Wasn't an ideal situation for me and the way that I envisioned being a mom. So then my parents were like, we have this accounting practice. My dad has multiple businesses. The accounting practice at one point was thriving, but in the 2010 recession and everything, a few of his large manufacturing clients actually went under. So it was not really, he wasn't growing it. It was just kind of there. It wasn't, his business was referral based. So he, you know, had a steady stream. They're like, you know what? Take it over. Try it. If you hate it, you can always go back to a corporate job or figure out what you want to do. So I'm like, you know what? This might be the best situation because I've got a baby. This allows me the flexibility. And that's when I realized I had a passion for teaching. People, I started going networking because everyone was like, how do you grow your business? You network. People started asking me questions. I saw I was getting the same questions over and over again. And then I started doing speaking engagements and workshops. And that's actually when I realized I have a passion for teaching. And that's what has then driven Dharna CPA to be what it is today, where if you follow me on Instagram or any of my social medias, I'm always giving tips because accountants don't tell you what you're supposed to do. And as a business owner, you don't get trained in how to stay compliant with CRA. There's so much self-learning or hit and miss learning, and I want to eliminate that. There's no reason why you can't just be set up for success from day one.
Absolutely. People who are watching this video, I've been in business for 35 years, and I can tell you, and I have a long-term accountant. I've had a couple of long-term accountants. They do not teach you and explain to you. They don't have the time. I've got accounting. I have an accounting background. I also have my charter life underwriter, so that I understand a lot of stuff that most of us just glaze over. Shalini, you said something really great. You talked about most have blinders on when it comes to numbers. So so when we look at, if we want to look at the difference between how we see what's going on with men, let's say, so in my practice, what I see is men just go out, they kill and slave, and they build empires, and they just go here it is, just do this, and they just keep going forward. The females are more in there, they don't want to look at it, right? And that's the thing, is that you remove the blinders to really help people to understand, because there is a massive difference between wealth when you practice your taxes. There's a huge difference. It's and when I introduced Shalini, I talked about save their taxes, right? Because you can actually invest your tax money if you know how to do this, because our wealth is eroded by tax unless you understand how the Income Tax Act works, and most of us don't. And here's a woman that is constantly putting herself out there trying to help to explain.
Well, one of my sayings that my father says that I absolutely love: you can't evade taxes, but you can absolutely avoid them. And to avoid them, you need to have strategy. You need to be cognizant. That same $100, if done A versus B, can have huge differences. And it's just about understanding what those differences are and then making informed decisions about what you want to do and what you're comfortable doing.
Absolutely. So the other thing that I wanted to share was 35 years ago, when I sat down and became an entrepreneur, I sat down for 3 hours with an accountant, and he explained to me how everything worked. Now, we didn't use computers back then, and so we built our own ledgers. And I developed such a strong financial sense in those 3 hours that I was able to develop significant wealth right from the get-go. It didn't take me very long. It was right away, because I understood the basic principles. And so here, Shalini, this is what you're doing, and I see you regularly putting yourself out there. And I really encourage ladies and gentlemen to sit down and have that chat with Shalini, because I get accountants and lawyers sending me clients saying, "Oh my God, I'm going to rip my hair out. Can you help this person?" They won't incorporate. They don't get it. And there is a time when it's a great time to incorporate. And just a simple explanation of that is that your corporation will pay 15% tax on the profits. And depending on what your personal income is, a lot of us are paying 54% on our marginal tax rate. So why would you not have 15 cent, 85 cent dollars in your corporation? I mean, think about it. It's better than an RSP. Have an RSP, have a corporation. So it's through building. And what I like, Shalini, is that you work with people to get them to that point, because you're financially advising them. You're not just doing their compliance, you're actually sitting with them and you're building a financial plan to show them, hey, do you want wealth? Do you want wealth? Why are you working? If you don't want wealth, then don't do your business. Like, don't do it just because you feel like I got a big kumbaya heart. Business is about making money too, right? And you're the lady here that can help people to take them to wealth. I mean, that's what creates sustainability. Do you want a side hustle, or do you want to work your business for 30 years?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't leave your 9-to-5 job to just be hustling from 8 hours a day to 12 hours a day to not see any return. The amount of people that I know that don't pay themselves anything out of their business because they're not making money to pay themselves. It's like, why did you leave your 9-to-5 job for this? Now, granted, there is an element of growing your business and getting it to that point, but paying yourself to be part of your startup budget. right? That's the planning part. That's the startup part.
Yeah, I think we almost need to have a, like a one-on-one class where people can come and bring their ledgers and their numbers and make it a workshop so that we can actually help them to get ahead and to do this. Because you're right. Tony Robbins made a statement probably 10 years ago. I was in his business mastery class. I took a lot of his classes, personally. It wasn't virtual. And he said in the room one day, there was two things that blew me away. One was, he said, the average entrepreneur makes $50,000 a year. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me, because exactly what you said, we're working 14-hour days, and that's a small amount of pay for all those hours that you put in. And the other thing that he did in the room was he asked us to put up our hand, have you been in business for, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? And it was amazing. And it had to be your company. It couldn't be a serial entrepreneur. The question was, in your specific company, how long have you been in business for? And, after 5 years, most of the hands went down in the room. And the thing is that, okay, if you sell your business, that's fine. But if this is your passion, Shalini, you're going to be doing your career forever. That's your career. I'm going to be doing my career for forever. I don't want to switch jobs. I'll be the one holding up my hand, in the audience until I die. I don't plan to stop doing what I'm doing. But that's a really interesting fact, because if anybody who's watching is in that window, here's a woman that can help you to get through that $50,000. And it's through the strategies. Because when you look at what you're paying in taxes, with, oh, I've got the blinders on, I don't understand this. Here's somebody who will explain it to you and do it for you.
Well, and it goes so much beyond taxes. When you're a business owner, it's more than just how much taxes you're paying. It's even your expenses. The amount of people that I can tell you that aren't doing their bookkeeping till a year after the fact, because they're like, I need to file my taxes. And now we're doing a year's worth of bookkeeping in one shot. What are you learning from those numbers when you're doing it a year later? They can't even answer questions sometimes about what a transaction is, let alone then learning from it to build their budget for next year. So it's just like a client deliverable is top priority. So are your numbers, because otherwise you're just basically floating, with up a creek without a paddle, as they say, right?
Yeah. What gets measured gets done. It's one of my favorite sayings. I tell my staff that we measure everything. What gets measured gets done.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell us what's next in your business? Where do you want to take this?
My long-term goal is definitely to have some sort of a business boot camp or business course section where people can go in and download videos and learn all the things they're supposed to do. Right now, I do workshops at least 2 or 3 times a year on small business write-offs, and I'm gonna, hopefully the kids go to school and they stay in school, and I have a whole bunch of ideas for other workshops and webinars. But truth be told, I have been balancing little kids. I've got a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old right now. I've been balancing that with, building my client base. But one day I want to have an entire resource section dedicated to financial literacy and business startup tips and tricks.
That's excellent. It's we don't see that being done. One of the things that we've got a lot of viewers here and chatter going on. One of the things I'd like to talk about is I think we should maybe do a workshop, and we can do that in either September or October. So people that are watching the video, write in below or send us a message, and we can send out an invite list. But I think that might be a really good idea if we have a Zoom event. I'll run it and host it and do all the work for you. You just show up and do your thing. Excellent. And just so we can, because I think it's really, really, really important that we help people to get going on this and to understand. We can make it very clear. You're setting up your business. Here's what you can write off. Here's the percentage of your home. These are why you want to write these things off, and then help them. We'll build a ratio system for them so that they can say, oh, you know, this month I made this much money, and the next month they can see, oh, I've made this much money, and I grew by 1% or I grew by 2%. So I'm telling you, I promise you, when you look,
I was gonna say, I have my webinar coming up, Deduct This Small Business Write-Offs. Is actually happening on September 10th. That would be a great starting point, because that explains the categories. Once you understand the categories and I teach you how to set up your books, that's then when your workshop of how do we then look at those numbers will come in play. Because the biggest question people give me is like, A, what can I write off? And how do I even organize my books to make sense of it all? So that webinar I am doing on September 10th, but I love your idea of doing something of, okay, well, now that you've organized it, how do you understand it? That is a great idea.
so we'll do it after September 10th. How do they sign up for your September 10th event?
It's an Eventbrite. I'll go into the comments and I'll post the link for it afterwards, but there's an Eventbrite link. Just register, you'll get the Zoom details, and it's online. You get an Excel workbook to do your own bookkeeping. I have a love-hate with Excel, but you get something to at least start. And then you get a post consult with me as well to answer any specific questions that we didn't get to answer during the webinar.
Awesome. That is fabulous. And so in the webinar, it's not interactive, right? They're just learning the information, or
there will be a chat box, so they can definitely ask their questions as we're doing it. So it's not one of those webinars where you don't get to see the people there. It'll be like a Zoom event.
Okay.
You can ask their questions, get any clarifications as I'm on that slide. And then I will just be recording it so that if anybody can't catch it live, they'll get the replay. But you know, we were talking about knowing your numbers. Well, they got to set up their numbers first before we can tell them what to do with them.
Yes, I love this. This is really good. So I think what you're doing is amazing. You're very giving. We see a lot of takers in the world today, and you know, from the moment I met you, which was probably close to a year ago, was it?
Yeah, probably at least a year now.
Yeah, and I just really loved how you just jumped right in there, and you just really offered yourself and your service. And you and I are the same. You know, we're not looking for clients on Facebook. I mean, that's not our gig. We work by referrals. So anytime you see Shalini giving an offer, take it, because she's giving that from her heart and her soul. She's not out marketing to get new customers. But of course, if you fit in, she's going to have you as a customer, absolutely. And I couldn't think of anybody better to really sign up to do your accounting with. And then you also do bookkeeping too, right? There's bookkeeping in your office?
I do basic levels of bookkeeping. So if you're not, depending on your needs and the number of transactions, I will sometimes say that you're better off going to somebody who just focuses on bookkeeping services. There's a lot of different apps and integrations, and it can get pretty convoluted depending on how big your business is. But for a lot of solopreneurs, incorporated or sole proprietors, yes, I do have 2 bookkeepers on staff, which means I can check their work. I can make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and then build it all the way up to filing your taxes, personal or corporate, and anything else financial.
Perfect. So just to explain what that means, I'll put it into my vocabulary. There was a time that I didn't have a bookkeeper. It was a very long time ago. I was the bookkeeper, and I did all of the numbers, and I was great at it. So I had no problem, and everything was done on a regular basis. So it's not the shoebox, I'll do it at the end of the year. It was done. This is long before we had Excel. And so it's very important to have that done. Now, once your revenues, your transactions reach a certain amount, you don't want to do that anymore. So you hand that off. We call that leverage. You hand that off to another person who will do that bookkeeping for you, and they're always put together on a regular basis. So you've got a scoreboard so you can see exactly where you are. The worst thing is when you're running around doing your business and you're like, I don't know if I'm at any profits yet. Did I pay this? Did it? And that's what bookkeeping is about. So you can look at it, and if you don't want to do it, it's very affordable. bookkeepers are worth their weight in gold. And so if you need somebody to do your work for 2 hours a month, they will do it for 2 hours a month. It's not a full-time job. You will be billed for exactly what you give to them. If you want to have these ratio sheets that Shalini and I are talking about, we'll build them for you that they can go to your bookkeeper or the bookkeeper with Shalini, which is probably a better idea. And you'll be able to see what those numbers are. And then you become strategic in your thinking. How do people become successful? They don't do it by fluke. They don't do it just by passion. They do it with, skilled strategic thinking and planning.
Yeah, and especially with bookkeeping, there's different levels of it. Like you can get bookkeepers who get to take care of your accounts receivable and your accounts payable. You can have bookkeepers who help you with your day-to-day, almost like an administrative assistant. And then my business, we don't do the day-to-day management, but we help with the reporting. So depending on what you're looking for, there's definitely a solution for you. But the biggest thing I want to just make sure that you understand, when you outsource bookkeeping, it's to save the time for the transactions. You don't outsource the responsibility of the accuracy of the numbers. You still have a role in the bookkeeping process. And that's really important. That's where a lot of people will also put on those blinders of, I don't have to look at my numbers. That's my bookkeeper's job now. You still need to review it with them. We still need your help to make sure it's accurate. So you still will always have a role in the bookkeeping process.
Yes, yes. And ultimately what you want to do is you want to build yourself some wealth. You want to put some money aside so that you have money in the future. You have money to buy your real estate. Maybe you're buying a second property. There's 100 different reasons why you want to put money aside. But really what you want to do is you want to put money aside so that you are responsible and that you're not relying on government handouts in the future, because that's not going to cut it.
Well, and we just went through this whole pandemic and business owners were struggling. And it's like, do you know what your break even is? So many business owners don't know what their break even number is, or even their walk away number. And those are the two numbers I tell all my clients you need to know. Break even is basically how much money you need to make every single month to not lose money in your business. So that's how many sales, that's your first target that every business owner needs to have. And the walk away number, it's a scary number for people and it's a hard conversation. But how much money are you willing to invest in this business before you say it's not a viable business? And those are, unless you're actually tracking your numbers and knowing that, this past pandemic, business owners shut down and some of them are not going to reopen because either they didn't qualify for all the funding, or the funding plus all the other costs, it's just not viable anymore.
Yeah. And it's that nest egg. The nest egg that we talk about. So depending on what generation you're from, my generation, I was born in the 60s, before the mid 60s, earlier 60s. Anyhow, it was really drilled into our head about having a nest egg and having a 3 to 6 month supply of money. And I know that the world has gotten away with these low interest rates and we can just borrow money and we can, and leverage is a good thing. We're not saying that it's a bad thing, but it's really good to have cash, to just have cash. I find that when you have cash, you just attract more. The more money you have, the more money comes in. The more bills and debt you have, the more of that comes in. And that's not a good way to live. You don't have to live that way, especially when you're an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur, the sky's the limit. You write your own paycheck. You work as hard as you want. If you want it to be a side hustle, then you'll only ever make a side hustle, pocketbook change, whatever. But you're more than that. We're more than that. And I think it's the cause. Shalini, you have a huge cause, and even though in your family, this was not directed at you. You were raised in a very fair environment. You still picked up from society that message that the man is here and the woman's here, and it's not saying that anything is wrong with that, but the problem is that it doesn't work because we end up on our own. So let's get into 2020 and get into the game and say, look, I've got this business. I'm doing Avon, or I'm doing home, what are those, when they're getting houses ready for sale, staging, whatever it is. Like, let's get you into a viable income and goal setting and get that money, put aside. Shalini can show you how to do that and what you can write off and what you can't write off. There's a lot of things that people are missing. They're missing these write-offs that would make them more profitable, put more money in their jeans. Then there's the other thing that happens where we always hear this, my friend told me, and whenever you hear my friend tell me stories, that's when you need to put your blinders on. Because if the person doesn't have a C in front of their name, Shalini does, I do, we are educated, we will tell you, people tell you they're allowed to take off their dry cleaning, like for their suits and stuff for work. It's like, really? Like, anyways, so let's just get in the know, and I'm really excited. So just to end this off, Shalini has a webinar on September the 12th, and she will list that below. Let's attend. I would love to attend. So I'm planning to, just got to check what time what time is it going to be?
It's actually on September 10th, and it's from 1 to 3:30. It's from 1 to 3:30 in the afternoon. But like I said, there will be a replay. So if anybody can't catch it live, you'll still get all the content, and everybody who attends is going to get a consult with me afterwards, so that if there's anything that I said or you want us to talk about your business and how a rule applies, you will get that opportunity with me included in the price.
That's a huge gift. That's a huge gift. So sign up for that. And then we'll also arrange the part 2, and we'll do a Zoom with there's a lot of ladies that we all know each other. So let's get together and do that next part. Thank you, Shalini, so much for joining us today. I know that it's been a very difficult time for you in the last month with the loss of your sister cousin, and many of us, our hearts go out to you, and it's just we know how difficult it is, but we don't know from your shoes what that's like. But keep posting those beautiful photos, because they make us feel good. So I'll give you the last word.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, for anybody watching this, your numbers are your path to financial freedom. So you need to know them, business or not.
Awesome. We'll see you soon in the workshops. Bye-bye. Bye.